Bleach Movie 4, Jigoku Hen, or Hellverse, is, as the name implies, a story that takes place in Hell. The requirement to watch this movie is watching or reading the last battle against Ulquiorra, since it takes place afterwards. However, storytelling wise, it is not possible to fit it into the main story unless you talk about the anime continuation after Aizen's defeat. The main story involves sinners that kidnap Ichigo's sister to lure him into hell, as Ichigo possesses a power that can free them. With the aid of another sinner, Kokuto, Ichigo and his friends enter hell to fight Shura and his henchmen to free Yuzu. Obviously, the main appeal of this movie are number one, finding out more about hell, since it only appeared once in the story and nothing has been done thus far. So if you are intrigued to find out more about hell and how it looks like, that's one of the reasons to watch the movie. The second reason is to see Ichigo's full hollow form for the second time, which he used against Ulquiorra and defeated him, since the enemies intend to use its power to their advantage. Not to mention, you are wondering that Ichigo needs to use that power to fight them. Are the enemy perhaps strong enough to defeat or pose a threat to that hollow form? Who knows? And lastly, Ichigo has a movie exclusive form, so you are intrigued to find out where that is going. But there are a few things that didn't translate well into the movie, like the last two examples, positives I mentioned, or appeals rather, that were hyped, didn't live up to the hype, and how while it looked impressive, it didn't mean much. Others did some effects on a character's powers and had some visual cues. The villains also had some where, since they were already dead, and killing them would make them reincarnate over and over again, had some unique advantages in terms how they fight. There are, in a certain sense, Hell itself has interesting ways for the enemy to combat the good guys, as there will be certain situations where they are willing to lose on purpose to be revived somewhere else. One of the issues in the previous Bleach movies is that there are too many characters. There were like 10 captains remaining after Aizen's betrayal, and each would focus on a few of them in fighting, and them using their powers alone took too much of the runtime. So many of the movies couldn't shine because the new unique features were outshined by Hitsugaya and Byakuya using Bankai. And this movie has the captains not involved, so there's less padding. However, since the main cast consists already of 5 characters, of which 4 are going to hell, it still felt too crowded, and it felt like the directors couldn't fit in a lot of better scenes with Ichigo's hyped up forms. The antagonists are rather bland, and most of them have hardly anything that makes them memorable. Kokuto was a pretty predictable character for the viewer if you watch Bleach at all. His motives aren't very clear, at least they weren't, and how he ended up in hell, but his backstory fleshed him out to a believable character. All the Bleach movies are animated impressively and have good choreography, but the many lack a distinct feature that makes them memorable, like the main story fights. Sadly, this movie, despite having that unique feature, lacks for not using that feature to its advantage. The final fight was fun to watch and engaging, but it left the viewer starving for a better done conclusion. It wasn't a bad ending, however. None of the Bleach movies end terrible. Regarding fan service, like I stated previously, none of the captains fight, meaning the fan favorites aren't involved in this movie. Also, there are missed opportunities to make some old villains appear since they are in hell, so you would expect someone like Shrika or the Espada to appear. From the characters, fans know only Ishida, Sado, Rukia, Renji and Ichigo are involved. If these aren't your favorites, you may be underwhelmed, despite their well-animated fights and stellar soundtrack. This movie left a lot to be desired, but by no means it is bad. It's worth a watch, and I would recommend you to do so if you haven't already.